All right, if you're a nurse, a student nurse, a doctor, a student, medical students, um, you're studying anatomy, physiology, whatever it is, as long as you come across the anatomy and physiology in your curriculum, or you're a stranger to the healthcare system, but you're interested in my videos, this one I'm about to make is very interesting, all right? So you can hang around. Thank you. So I want to talk about something in the endocrine system, okay? Now, the reason I want to talk about this is because there is just an illustration I want to use that is going to help you out there, no matter where you are, no matter what country you are, to better understand how these two things I'm going to mention in the glands and the hormones, how they work. I'm going to mention the different types of hormones, and I'm going to illustrate for you how different hormones functions. And by different, I mean the main types of hormones, not the subtypes under them, all right? So let's get right into it. So now, when we are talking about the glands, we are aware that the glands are a group of cells or tissues. Now, their job is to basically, they have different functions, all right? They have different functions. And when we talk about they have different functions, they are divided into two subgroups. That is the endocrine glands, and we have the exocrine glands, all right? So the endocrine glands are the types of glands that releases hormones. This one, their job is to release hormones into the bloodstream, all right? They release hormones into the bloodstream. This type of glands, endocrine glands. But when we talk about the exocrine glands here we are talking about, these ones, they do not necessarily release they don't release hormones, all right, into the bloodstream, but they release substances through ducts, all right, such as they release saliva, they release sweat. Those are the kind of things they release. But where we are laying emphasis on today is this one called the hormones, all right? Yes. So now, speaking of hormones, let's come here. So what exactly are hormones? Hormones are just simply chemical substances. You can equally call them chemical messengers that the glands use to communicate with the body to regulate bodily functions like your temperature, your pH, your metabolism, growth, and different things. And one of such of those hormones is like we're looking at something like insulin, which your body releases. Insulin is an example of a hormone your body releases to control your sugar level. Yes. Another could be adrenaline. Adrenaline is also another one. Adrenaline is another type of hormone that your body releases to, you know, prepare you for situations that require fight or flight. Yeah, you get the point. Yeah. So, but when we now look at the different or the main subtypes, I'm going to be avoiding this part of the board. I don't know if my camera captured it. There is light reflecting here. So when we look at the different subtypes of, hormones, we have three main types. We are looking at the first one, we call it peptide hormones or protein hormones. We call it peptide hormones, or you can call them protein hormones, all right? Now we have the second type too here. The second type is called the amine or amine hormones. However you wish to pronounce them, just make sure you know what we're talking about. You can equally call them the amino acid hormones. Just stick with me, all right? Make sure you don't screw. Stick around. We are getting there. And the last one, we call them steroids. Now, remember I said that hormones are chemical substances that the glands use, emphasis on the endocrine glands. They use in communicating with the body, either to regulate bodily functions in terms of either increasing or decreasing certain substances in the body or certain effects that's going on in or out of the body. All right? Good. So now here's how I look at it. In order for us to properly understand how these three types of hormones, the three main types of hormones function, I'm going to use a beautiful illustration for you. That is the reason why, if you made it to this point of the video, you've hit the jackpot. Now, here's what we're going to do, okay? I'm going to illustrate this. Now, let's use this gland. Let me represent this gland as a human being. This is a gland, all right? I'll call this guy gland. But imagine the gland that is functioning at this very point is a human being. Remember, glands need to communicate, all right? Now, they communicate with certain cells through the use of hormones. Good. Now, this is a gland. Now, I want that cell to represent another individual. I want the cell to represent another individual. Now, walk with me. Hold on. I want the cell to represent another individual. This is a cell. Now, let us come here. You see, when it comes to peptide hormones, all right, there's what we call cell membrane. We all know that, some of us know that cell membrane is like a wall, the wall of a cell. All right, let's say this is a cell. Okay, whatever shape it takes. We know that cell membranes give the cells their shape and structure. So this thing outside here, this thin thing outside here that surrounds the cell and the organelles inside, the organelles are like organs, or will I say little organisms that are inside the cell, or you can call them organs, like the nucleus, we can call the mitochondria, lysosomes, ribosomes, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. But you see this thing around the cell, it's called the cell membrane. Okay, good. Now, this is where things get interesting. In order for this gland to tell this cell what to do, the gland will have to communicate to the cell using hormones. Let me just use this. Since it's in the bloodstream, I'm just going to use it like that. Using hormones as a means of communication. Now, those hormones, I want to call the hormone the language. So whether you are from Nigeria, whether you are from Ghana, Cameroon, Sierra Leone, Uganda, Kenya, some of you watch my videos from different countries. Imagine in your local dialect, all right? Let me use mine. Now, let's say this is me. I am a gland. And I am speaking what we call Igbo, because I am an Igbo man, okay? Now, if I'm speaking Igbo, the language Igbo, and this cell here is another person, but this cell here is, let's say, a Yoruba person, okay? Now, if I were to speak Igbo, there's a chance that if this Yoruba person doesn't understand Igbo, he will be confused when I speak. So when I speak to him in this language, Igbo, which is representing the hormones, when it gets to this guy being the cell, all right, that cell has what we call cell membrane around it. Now, let's say under peptide hormones, that's what we're talking about. Under peptide hormones are hormones that act on the cell membrane through receptors. Now, they are receptors. Let's just say receptors are just things that, receive the messages. They are located on the cell membrane, but they receive the messages from whatever is sending those hormones, the protein hormones. So this guy here, very important figure, one of the main characters, receptors, when it comes to protein hormones. So I want you to look at that receptor there. Look at the receptor there as an interpreter. Let's call the receptor an interpreter. Good. Now, if the receptor is the interpreter, it means that whenever I speak Igbo, this is me, under peptide hormones. I have to indicate this here. We are talking about peptide hormones now. I want you to understand. Now, whenever I speak Igbo, and my Igbo language is going to this Yoruba person, before this Yoruba person can really understand what I am talking about, he needs an interpreter. And that interpreter, the person that will be interpreting my Igbo language to him in Yoruba, is the receptor that is located on the cell membrane. You're getting the point now, right? Very good. So it means that the receptor receives the hormones and communicates the information to the cell. That is how peptide hormones work. Okay? So without, when it comes to protein hormones, without the presence of receptors, the protein hormones cannot tell the cell what to do, or it cannot act on the cell. That makes sense. Now let's look at the next one. Amine hormones. Now when it comes to amine or amine hormones or amino acid hormones, these ones, they do not need an interpreter. It means that amine hormones communicate directly to the cell membrane without the use or the need of a receptor. That is, that receptor, in this case, we do not need an interpreter. All right? So what it means is that I am an Igbo guy, and the person I'm communicating with is Yoruba. All right? But that Yoruba person also understands Igbo to an extent or completely. So when I am communicating, this guy does not need an interpreter. Are you getting the point now? He doesn't need an interpreter. So when it comes to amine hormones, they communicate directly or they act directly on the cell membrane. Are you seeing? They don't need a receptor. They act directly on the cell membrane. That is how amine hormones work. So you see, it is just like an Igbo guy, myself, communicating with this guy who is a Yoruba guy. But this Yoruba guy understands Igbo, so he doesn't need an interpreter. So it's like dual function here, all right? Good. So let us look at the last one. The last one here, steroids. This is a free masterclass. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button and prepare to share and drop your comments. Let's look at the last one. The last one we call it steroids. Or we call them steroids. Now you see the steroids. How they function is this. Steroids act intracellularly. Steroids act intracellularly. That's how they act. Meaning that in this case, this is now the illustration I'm going to be using for you. This is not a Yoruba person who understands Igbo, but this is another Igbo person. Meaning that when we are speaking, our communication is going to be very smooth because we are from the same, ethnicity, tribe, and he understands it much more than the Yoruba guy. So it means that since the steroids act intracellularly, that it does not act on the cell membrane, but instead it acts inside the cell. To illustrate, it means if I am speaking Igbo, my communication will be extremely smooth if I'm speaking to an Igbo person. And that Igbo person here is the cell. So it doesn't need the cell membrane. It works inside the cell. Now, I want you to figuratively think of that intracellularly in these terms of language as the kind of close bond of background and understanding that we share. So this is the illustration I wanted to use. I found it fun, so I decided I wanted to share this with you who will be watching this video. So if you know you learned something, you now understand how these three different types of hormones function. I want you to hit the like button. All right, hit the like button. If you are seeing me here on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, drop a comment. All right, drop a comment. Tell me you enjoyed this. Tell me what you learned. Tell me if you found this helpful, and share. Hit the share button, repost it, and share with your friends. If you're a medical student, a nursing student, anatomy, physiology, physiotherapist, whatever you are, just share this video. And don't forget to follow. Most importantly, follow, subscribe, like my page wherever you find me, okay? If you found this helpful. I am Nurse Jonathan Nzebuka. So in case you don't know me. So in case you love this kind of teaching, let me just let you know, the Master Nursing from Inside Out is ongoing, all right? This is the kind of thing my students enjoy, the use of illustrations, and examples that will make them understand better. So currently, the Master Nursing from Inside Out is going on. If you want to sign up, it's 30,000 naira for the class going on September under the respiratory system. We're almost done with the anatomy and physiology. So if you see this video, you need to rush and sign up before we conclude, so you can get access to the materials and get access to the latter parts of the classes. So take care of yourself. This is not Jonathan Nzebuka, and it is my job to shape the future of healthcare through nursing. Did I say through nursing? Shape the future of healthcare through knowledge.